Wayne County Sheriff and Detroit mayoral candidate Benny Napoleon's deputies kicked in the door at the home of an ex-employee after she says she'd been fired for blowing the whistle on his top brass.
Now, 7 Action News investigator Heather Catallo has uncovered some of Napoleon's text messages that show the raid may have been improper. And Heather, tell us about these text messages you found.
Well, the text messages recently came to light in a lawsuit, and they have legal experts saying Sheriff Benny Napoleon may have abused his power. So we wanted to know, why would the leader of a cash-strapped department send several deputies to search a former employee's home? And did the very people who enforce the law break it?
Did you abuse your power here?
Absolutely not.
Sheriff Benny Napoleon says he did nothing wrong when his department raided this woman's home, but Renee Newell completely disagrees.
It was 7 or 8 officers. They were bamming and kicking on the door.
That was Newell last summer, explaining how Wayne County Sheriff's deputies burst into her home, terrifying her daughter, seizing her computers.
They rushed in here, rushed her into here and started telling her to get down, lay down, and you're going to jail.
The raid was approved by a magistrate, but the sheriff's own text messages raise questions about whether the request to approve the raid left out important facts. The 7 Action News investigators have Napoleon's text messages, which we'll show you in a moment. But first, let's take a look back at how the sheriff's top commanders justified the search of Newell's home last summer. At the time of the raid last July, sheriff's officials told the 7 Action News investigators they believed Newell authored an attachment on this email. The email falsely accuses Napoleon's right-hand man, Executive Chief Eric Smith, of being a felon.
Did you send that email?
No, I did not.
What were they really looking for?
I believe that they were looking for any evidence that I might have to support my whistleblower case.
At the time of the search, Newell's attorney was negotiating a settlement of her whistleblower claim. The sides never settled, and Newell later sued the county, claiming she was fired from her job as director of jail compliance last year after she blew the whistle on alleged wrongdoing among some of Sheriff Napoleon's top executives. Even though sheriff's officials said under oath in this search warrant that Newell sent the malicious email, the Wayne County Sheriff's Department's own internet crime sergeant has now testified, quote, "I don't know who authored it." The sergeant also testified that one of the key statements in the search warrant that implicates Newell was inaccurate. So if the sheriff's own internet crimes expert doesn't know who sent that email, why was the search of Renee Newell's home allowed?
The sheriff authorized it.
That's Under Sheriff Dan Fanas telling me last year Benny Napoleon gave his investigators the green light to go after Newell. They seized her personal computers, flash drives, and cell phones, a long list of items spelled out in this 7-page search warrant. But get this, days before those deputies kicked in her door and hauled away Newell's computers, the sheriff himself knew someone else had sent that email. How do we know that? He says so in his own text messages, and we've got them. Here's a timeline of what the sheriff knew and when. On July 20th, 2012, top-ranking Wayne County Sheriff's officials start receiving the false email about Chief Smith, who's also a lawyer. On July 23rd, Sheriff Napoleon engages in a heated text exchange with a man Napoleon thinks is the person who actually sent the email. Napoleon writes, quote, "That malicious email you sent has been verified to be false by the Justice Department. I have the letter from the Justice Department clearing Attorney Smith. Facts never support falsehoods." The 7 Action News investigators have obtained these phone records that show Napoleon also called that man within an hour of that text. The call lasted 14 minutes. Yet, 3 days later, Napoleon does not stop the search of Renee Newell's home, even though he could have put the brakes on the raid. If you knew someone else sent that email, why did you raid Renee Newell's home?
Well, I didn't raid Renee Newell's home. The sheriff's office did.
Wait a minute. Isn't Napoleon the sheriff? Let's hear that again.
I didn't raid Renee Newell's home. The sheriff's office did. There's an investigation that is still pending. There were text messages and emails that implicated more than one person. There were several people involved in this.
But that doesn't add up either, especially since sheriff's officials admit Newell's house was the only one searched.
Did you abuse your power here?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, not at all.
And you're saying everything in that search warrant was truthful?
I did not review, I don't review search warrants. That's not my job. We believe that we've done everything within accordance to the law, and we stand by it.
Renee Newell has not been charged with any crimes, and according to court records, a police investigator has said under oath that she is not the target of any criminal investigations.
The government can't come into your home. This is what started the revolution.
Wayne State University law professor Peter Henning says if the search warrant for Newell's home was based on false or incomplete information, then the raid may have been illegal.
If there's evidence of a lie, it shows that the investigation was not just misguided or mistaken, it violated the Constitution, and indeed could even be considered a crime.
Sheriff's officials maintain they did have probable cause to get the warrant to search Newell's home, and very late today, Napoleon's second in command told me the sheriff may have thought he was texting Newell. But Napoleon never once suggested that in his own interview with me 3 weeks ago. The county also insists Newell is suing because she is a disgruntled ex-employee. As for her whistleblower lawsuit, it's ongoing, but a judge recently ordered that the county return all of the computers that were seized from Newell.
Now, Heather, you've been working this story for more than a year. She has never been charged with anything. So what is it they're specifically saying she did wrong?
Well, one of the allegations was criminal slander because of that email that was sent. But officials in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office told me they could check their records going back 13 years, and they've never prosecuted anyone for that.
All right, Heather Catallo, thank you for the report. I have a feeling we're going to hear more about this. Thanks.
Thank you much.
We have Team 7 coverage on every angle of this verdict tonight, from the defendants to the prosecution to the jury and Detroiters as well. We begin tonight with 7 Action News investigator Heather Catallo, who has been following this case from the very beginning. Heather, a very epic day at the end of a very long trial.
Absolutely. This was a history-making day here at federal court. As you said, Kwame Kilpatrick and Bobby Ferguson both convicted of the racketeering and the extortion charges, the most serious charges in this case. The jury was hung on whether or not Bernard Kilpatrick was part of that Kilpatrick enterprise. And Ferguson and Kilpatrick are already in federal custody.
Inside the courtroom, Detroit's former mayor and his friend Bobby Ferguson listened as the jury read charge after charge of guilty convictions for the two men. Kwame Kilpatrick and Bobby Ferguson both guilty of the racketeering count, the jury sending a clear message that they ran a criminal enterprise out of City Hall. Both men were convicted of several extortion charges related to city water department contracts, as well as a bribery charge for a $75,000 payment Ferguson made to the Kilpatrick Civic Fund. The former mayor was also convicted of several mail and wire fraud charges, as well as all 6 tax charges. Kilpatrick said nothing as he left federal court after the verdict.
He's pensive. He's under the circumstances, he's doing as good as he can.
I was surprised by the verdict. I thought for sure that we had established reasonable doubt on the RICO counts and the other substantive counts of bribery and extortion.
Again, the jury was hung on whether or not Bernard Kilpatrick was part of the Kilpatrick enterprise on that RICO charge, and the U.S. Attorney has announced that she will not be retrying him on that count. That means Bernard Kilpatrick, who was facing 4 different charges, some of them with penalties up to 20 years, is now only convicted of 1 tax crime with a penalty of up to 3 years. So even though his attorney told me today that, of course, Bernard Kilpatrick is just absolutely devastated about what has happened to his son, in a way, it was a bit of a victory for Bernard Kilpatrick and his legal team today. Now, just to walk everybody back through in case you weren't with us all day, after the verdict was read, the defendants were allowed to leave the court, but then they came back in for another hearing up on the 8th floor up there. That's where the judge decided to remand them back into federal custody, and it was during that hearing that Kwame Kilpatrick finally showed the emotion he obviously wasn't showing for the duration of this trial. He just looked sick. He kept covering his eyes, covering his ears. Just the emotion of where his life is now headed obviously was hitting him. He looked absolutely devastated. Our reporters in the courtroom say they'd never seen him like that before, ever. He's now facing potentially decades behind bars. Reporting live at the federal courthouse in downtown Detroit, I'm Heather Catallo, 7 Action News.
We begin tonight with a woman at the heart of the Wayne County severance scandal breaking her silence.
Terkia Mullen says she feels completely vindicated now that she'll get paid more than $700,000 from the airport.
And today, Mullen's lawyer made some bold statements that don't match the records that 7 Action News investigator Heather Catallo has uncovered. Heather joins us now. Heather, I want to hear more.
Well, the arbitration judge decided that Terkia Mullen was not dishonest in her efforts to get her job at Metro Airport. So now she's $700,000 richer. But instead of just taking a victory lap, her attorney today decided to rehash the severance scandal from Mullen's final days at Wayne County. The problem is, he doesn't seem to have all of the facts.
Terkia Mullen's name is becoming synonymous with severance once again.
For more than a year and a half, my life has been put on hold as my professional career has been scrutinized and attacked. The judge's detailed 17-page opinion completely vindicates me, restores my reputation as an honest, hardworking person.
The former airport CEO read from a prepared statement today. Mullen is still under investigation by the FBI and refused to answer any questions from reporters. An arbitration judge just awarded Mullen more than $712,000. It's the severance she was promised in her contract when she agreed to run Metro Airport. You'll recall the Airport Authority Board fired Mullen back in 2011 after 7 Action News exposed that Robert Facano had given Mullen a $200,000 golden parachute when she voluntarily resigned from her job as Wayne County's economic development chief so she could take the new gig at the airport. To justify firing her, some airport board members accused her of being dishonest after we revealed that Mullen's written agreement to get that $200,000 severance was this undated letter, a letter that wasn't written until after Mullen was getting ready to leave the county.
There is no severance scandal. There never was a severance scandal. The severance scandal dies today.
Mullen's lawyer, Ray Sterling, now claims that Mullen never saw that undated letter that was put on Old County letterhead.
She did not receive that undated letter. She didn't even know about the undated letter until she heard about it in the media.
But we have an email from former county deputy CEO Azam Elder that was sent to Mullen before she left the county. Attached to that email is the final version of the now infamous undated letter.
It was part of my contract, part of my agreement.
Sterling also says that Mullen never tried to say the undated letter was her contract and that she never released it to us.
She never gave anyone that undated letter as being her contract.
Yes, she did. When I asked her for her contract, that's what she gave me.
She did not give it to you. Wayne County gave it to you.
Actually, after we asked Mullen repeatedly for her contract, it was Mullen's PR expert who was working for her at the airport who emailed us the letter.
The bottom line is this. They want to say there's no severance scandal because the arbitration judge said that the undated letter does count as a contract because it memorialized an oral agreement. Fine. What they fail to grasp is that this was a severance scandal because a government employee got paid $200,000 in taxpayer money from a county that is broke, regardless of whether she had a contract or not.
It had to be frustrating for you to feel like you were being told you didn't have it right and you knew you had it right.
Well, we have the documents. I mean, we have the
exactly.
documents. We have the records.
And we begin tonight with a 7 Action News investigation that has once again led to a federal charge against a local man.
7 Action News investigator Heather Catallo was the first to expose Brian Lovejoy. She joins us now live from federal court. And Heather, how much time is Lovejoy facing?
Well, potentially up to 20 years behind bars. Brian Lovejoy faced a magistrate here inside federal court a short time ago. He was allowed to bond out of custody, but like so many times before, he refused to answer our questions today.
And me and my kids can't survive without nowhere to go. I don't know, but every day I be thinking of killing myself.
Zonin McMullen says after she fought for years to get herself off of welfare, she is destitute once again. McMullen and her 2 teenage sons have to live with a friend, and she says sometimes she has to beg for food. This disabled widow says it's all because of this man, Charles Brian Lovejoy.
We stop. He take all our savings.
Last year, 7 Action News first exposed how several local families say Lovejoy took hundreds of thousands of dollars from them through real estate deals. McMullen says she thought she was buying this house in Oak Park from Lovejoy back in 2010. But according to court records, Lovejoy never owned the home. So McMullen lost her $45,000 in cash that she gave him, and she got kicked out of the house. The 7 Action News investigators also discovered Lovejoy owes more than $692,000 in judgments for civil lawsuits involving real estate deals.
He destroyed families. He destroyed marriages with this.
Last summer, a local judge sentenced Lovejoy to 6 months in the Oakland County Jail. But now the FBI is on his case.
This morning, the FBI arrested him.
Yes. Oh, thanks God. Oh, yes.
This afternoon, the 36-year-old Lovejoy was arraigned on a federal wire fraud charge. The magistrate released him on a $50,000 unsecured bond. Outside the court, Lovejoy once again refused to talk to us on camera about the allegations he's facing.
What do you have to say about the charges? Are you going to pay those people back, Mr. Lovejoy?
They say you have taken their life savings. Are you going to pay them back? Zana McMullen and her son Junior say they desperately need their savings returned to them, but they are grateful he's finally being held accountable.
The thing he did to my mom, the thing he did to my family, I just hope he get whatever's coming to him.
Thank you to you guys to, catch this bad guy for me. I say thanks God to FBI.
Today, Lovejoy also asked for a court-appointed attorney, but the magistrate said you just make too much money to have a totally free lawyer, so Lovejoy is going to have to pay $150 a month towards the cost of a federal defender. Reporting live at federal court in downtown Detroit, I'm Heather Catallo, 7 Action News. Glenda, back to you.
So, Heather, could there be any more charges for Mr. Lovejoy?
Well, Glenda, of course, we know from our investigation that there are other alleged victims than the one that's just cited in this criminal complaint, but we also know that the feds don't put everything they have on an investigation into a complaint like this, so we'll have to see what happens down the road.
All right, Heather, thanks so much.